After the devastation of World War I, Germany found itself in a period of unprecedented instability and uncertainty. The defeat on the battlefield, followed by the abdication of Kaiser Wilhelm II, marked the end of the German Empire. In its place rose the Weimar Republic in 1919, named after the town where the new constitution was drafted. This fragile democracy faced immense challenges from the very beginning, as it was established in the aftermath of a humiliating military defeat and amidst widespread political and social upheaval. Although it aspired to build a modern, democratic Germany, the Weimar Republic became a symbol of how easily democracy can be undermined by economic turmoil and political extremism. The Weimar Republic was born into a deeply troubled world. In November 1918, as World War I drew to a close, Germany found itself on the brink of revolution. The war had taken a devastating toll on the country. Millions were dead, the economy was in ruins, and German forces were retreating on all fronts. Kaiser Wilhelm II, Germany's emperor, had been the face of the imperial system, but by late 1918 his government was collapsing. Disillusioned soldiers and workers staged strikes and uprisings across the country, demanding an end to the war and a new political system.
On November 9, 1918, Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated and fled to the Netherlands, marking the end of the German Empire. In his place, a new German republic was declared.
The revolutionary movement, led by Friedrich Ebert of the Social Democratic Party, sought to establish a democratic government. Just 2 days later, on November 11th, the armistice was signed, officially ending the war but leaving Germany in a state of profound upheaval. In 1919, Germany's political elites gathered in the town of Weimar to draft a new constitution for the fledgling republic. Known as the Weimar Constitution, it established a democratic framework with a Reichstag elected by universal suffrage and a president serving as the head of state. While the Weimar Republic aimed to create a modern democracy, it was born into an environment of political violence, economic instability, and deep societal divisions. One of the first and most immediate challenges facing the Weimar Republic was the Treaty of Versailles, signed in June 1919. The treaty placed the full blame for World War I on Germany, imposing harsh penalties that included the loss of territory, severe limitations on the German military, and most devastatingly, reparations payments totaling billions of marks. These terms were viewed as a national humiliation by many Germans who felt they had been unfairly treated by the Allied powers.
The economic consequences of the Treaty of Versailles were severe. The Weimar Republic struggled to make the reparations payments, and by the early 1920s, hyperinflation had set in. The German currency, the mark, became virtually worthless. People's savings were wiped out, and the cost of basic goods skyrocketed. At the height of the hyperinflation crisis in 1923, the exchange rate was 4.2 trillion marks to $1. This period of economic instability further eroded faith in the Weimar government, as many Germans associated the Republic with the hardships they were facing.
The economic crisis was exacerbated by the occupation of the Ruhr, Germany's industrial heartland, by French and Belgian forces in 1923. When Germany defaulted on its reparations payments, these foreign powers took control of the Ruhr, leading to strikes and further economic disarray. The Weimar government's response, printing more money to cover the reparations, only deepened the inflation crisis.
As the Weimar Republic struggled with the economic crises of post-World War I Germany, it became a battleground for political extremism from both the far left and the far right.
The political landscape was deeply polarized, with each side seeking to dismantle the fragile democracy in pursuit of their own revolutionary goals.
On the left, the Spartacist uprising in 1919 saw communist revolutionaries, inspired by the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, attempt to overthrow the Weimar government and establish a Soviet-style state.
This violent uprising was crushed by the government, but it left deep scars on the political fabric of Germany.
On the far right, groups like the Freikorps, made up of former soldiers embittered by Germany's defeat in the war, waged violent campaigns against communists, socialists, and any group they perceived as a threat to traditional German values.
The Weimar Republic found itself caught between these two extremes, each willing to use violence and intimidation to achieve their goals.
Among the most dangerous threats to the Weimar Republic was the rise of far-right nationalism.
In the aftermath of the war, right-wing groups, including the National Socialist German Workers' Party or Nazi Party led by Adolf Hitler, began to gain influence by exploiting widespread disillusionment with the Republic.
Hitler and his followers blamed the Weimar government for Germany's defeat in World War I, the humiliating terms of the Treaty of Versailles, and the economic hardships plaguing the country.
Hitler portrayed the Republic as weak, corrupt, and incapable of addressing the needs of the German people.
In 1923, Hitler made his first significant attempt to seize power during the Beer Hall Putsch in Munich.
Though the coup failed and Hitler was imprisoned, the incident highlighted the growing threat posed by radical right-wing movements and demonstrated Hitler's willingness to use violence to achieve political ends.
It also provided Hitler with a platform from which he could promote his ideology of nationalism, anti-Semitism, and anti-communism, which would later become central to his rise.
Throughout the 1920s, the Weimar Republic faced an increasingly unstable political environment.
The proportional representation system in the Weimar Constitution, designed to give a voice to a wide range of political parties, often led to fragmented parliaments and unstable coalition governments.
No single party was able to secure a majority in the Reichstag, and frequent elections produced weak and short-lived coalitions that struggled to maintain control or implement lasting reforms.
The political fragmentation meant that the government could not effectively address the country's pressing economic and social issues.
As a result, the Republic appeared fragile and ineffective, and public disillusionment with democracy grew.
This instability, combined with the growing influence of extremist movements, laid the groundwork for the eventual collapse of the Weimar Republic.
The political instability of the Weimar Republic created a vacuum that was increasingly filled by radical elements on both sides of the political spectrum.
Left-wing groups continued to agitate for a communist revolution, while the far right sought to dismantle the Republic and restore Germany's former imperial power.
As the Republic's democratic institutions faltered, extremist movements, particularly the Nazi Party, gained traction among the disillusioned masses.
The Nazis capitalized on the widespread fear of communism and the perception that democracy had failed to deliver stability or prosperity.
By positioning themselves as the saviors of Germany, the Nazis, led by Hitler, would soon exploit the Republic's weaknesses to seize power, signaling the end of Weimar democracy and the rise of fascism. The Great Depression, which began with the Wall Street crash of 1929, sent shockwaves through the global economy, but few nations felt the impact as severely as Germany.
Already weakened by the crushing reparations payments imposed by the Treaty of Versailles, and an economy still reeling from the hyperinflation crisis of the early 1920s, Germany's fragile financial situation collapsed entirely.
The global economic downturn led to a sharp decline in foreign investment and trade, further straining the German economy.
By 1932, unemployment had soared to nearly 6 million, with countless businesses and banks going bankrupt.
The despair, brought on by mass unemployment, poverty, and widespread economic suffering, created a fertile ground for political extremism, as the German people began to lose faith in the ability of the Weimar Republic to resolve the crisis.
The political centre, which had struggled to hold the Republic together, now found itself unable to stem the rising tide of polarization.
Amid this economic and social turmoil, the Nazi Party, led by Adolf Hitler, emerged as a powerful political force.
Hitler and the Nazis capitalized on the widespread public anger, offering simple solutions to the complex problems facing Germany.
They promised to restore national pride, overturn the Treaty of Versailles, and rebuild the economy by eliminating unemployment and crushing the perceived communist threat.
Hitler's message of strength, unity and order resonated deeply with a population desperate for change.
His ability to scapegoat Jews, communists, and the Weimar government for Germany's misfortunes further fueled the party's rise.
By 1932, the Nazi Party had become the largest political party in the Reichstag, with over 37% of the vote in the July elections.
While the Nazis did not hold an outright majority, their growing influence and Hitler's charismatic leadership positioned the party as a dominant force in German politics.
As Hitler gained more visibility, Germany's streets became battlegrounds between the political left and right.
Nazi paramilitary groups like the SA or Sturmabteilung clashed with communists and socialists in a brutal struggle for control of public spaces and influence over the population.
The Weimar Republic's fragile democracy was crumbling under the weight of this political violence, as its coalition governments proved incapable of maintaining order or delivering meaningful solutions to the economic crisis.
Many Germans, increasingly disillusioned with democracy, turned to extremist movements like the Nazis, believing that only a strong, authoritarian leader could restore stability.
In this volatile environment, President Paul von Hindenburg, though initially wary of Hitler, was persuaded by conservative elites that appointing Hitler as Chancellor would provide a path to controlling him and stabilizing the government.
On January 30th, 1933, under intense political pressure, President Paul von Hindenburg reluctantly appointed Adolf Hitler as Chancellor of Germany.
This decision marked the beginning of the end for the Weimar Republic.
Though the appointment was intended to contain Hitler and the Nazis within the framework of a traditional conservative government, it would prove to be a fatal miscalculation.
In the months that followed, Hitler moved quickly to consolidate his power.
The Reichstag fire in February 1933 provided him with the pretext to pass the Reichstag fire decree, which suspended civil liberties and allowed for the arrest of political opponents.
Soon after, the Enabling Act was passed, granting Hitler the authority to legislate without parliamentary consent and effectively establishing a dictatorship.
Within a matter of months, the Weimar Republic was dismantled, and Hitler had transformed Germany into a one-party totalitarian state, marking the rise of the Third Reich.
What had started as an experiment in democracy had come to a violent and tragic end, setting the stage for World War II and the Holocaust, two of the darkest chapters in human history.
The Weimar Republic serves as a cautionary tale of how fragile democracy can be in the face of economic crisis, political extremism, and societal division.
Born in the wake of a devastating war and burdened by the punitive terms of the Treaty of Versailles, the Weimar Republic struggled to maintain stability from the beginning.
Economic disasters such as hyperinflation and the Great Depression further eroded public trust in the system, creating fertile ground for radical movements like Nazism to take root.
Despite its ideals of democratic governance and civil liberties, the Weimar Republic was unable to withstand the pressures that ultimately led to its downfall.
The collapse of the Weimar Republic highlights the dangers of political polarization and the vulnerability of democratic institutions when they lack the support of the people.
In Germany's case, the inability to address the economic, social, and political crises of the 1920s and 1930s opened the door for Adolf Hitler to seize power.
Within a few short years, Germany transitioned from a struggling democracy to a totalitarian regime that would plunge the world into World War II and the Holocaust.
Today, Germany has become a symbol of resilience, having rebuilt itself after the horrors of the Nazi regime and the devastation of the Second World War.
The lessons of the Weimar Republic remind us that democracy, while fragile, can endure if its citizens remain vigilant, protect civil liberties, and resist the forces of extremism.
The story of the Weimar Republic is a stark reminder that the loss of democratic institutions can happen quickly, with devastating consequences for both the nation and the world.